What if I told you that the man we know as Santa Claus, a jolly figure in a red suit who brings gifts on Christmas Eve, has a story far darker, far older, and far more mysterious than you ever imagined? His roots stretch back thousands of years, tangled in myths, legends, and ancient fears. Across the world, he has worn many faces: a benevolent gift-bringer, a shadowy enforcer of morality, and even a figure of dread. How did a saint from 4th century Turkey transform into the global icon we know today? What do mysterious figures like Sinterklaas, Ded Moroz, and the sinister Krampus reveal about Santa's hidden origins? And what dark tales were told in ancient villages to scare children into obedience during the longest, coldest nights of the year? Tonight, we journey deep into the forgotten origins of Santa Claus, peeling back the layers of his history to uncover unsettling truths, eerie stories, and cultural connections that will send shivers down your spine. By the end, you'll never look at Santa the same way again. Are you ready to discover the shadowy past of the world's most beloved myth? Then let's begin. In the depths of winter, when the days grow short and the cold winds howl through barren trees, there emerges a story, one of mystery, warmth, and wonder. It is a tale that has persisted for centuries, evolving with time, whispered across cultures, and carried across continents. This is the story of Santa Claus, the benevolent figure who brings joy to children, but whose origins are far more enigmatic than most would imagine. The legend of Santa Claus did not simply spring into existence one cold December night. No, his roots lie tangled in the histories of ancient peoples, pagan rituals, religious traditions, and even a touch of darkness. Before he became the jolly red-suited icon we know today, he was something else entirely, a figure of folklore born from need, belief, and superstition. To understand where Santa Claus came from, we must delve into the distant past, uncovering forgotten stories and exploring the origins of this timeless figure. Our story begins in the 4th century, in a small village in what is now modern-day Turkey. It is here, in the ancient town of Patara, that a man named Nicholas of Myra was born. The world in which Nicholas lived was one of harsh realities. The Roman Empire still cast its long shadow across the lands, but the seeds of Christianity were beginning to take root. Nicholas was no ordinary child. He was said to be pious from a young age, dedicating his life to faith and service. After the death of his wealthy parents, Nicholas inherited a substantial fortune. But instead of reveling in luxury, he chose to use his wealth to help the poor, the sick, and the downtrodden. Stories of his deeds spread like wildfire, and soon Nicholas became a figure of legend. One of the most famous stories about Nicholas tells of 3 sisters whose family had fallen into poverty. Without dowries, the girls faced a grim fate. They would likely be sold into slavery or forced into lives of shame. On 3 separate nights, Nicholas crept to the family's house and tossed bags of gold through their window, ensuring the sisters could marry and live with dignity. Some versions of the tale even claim that Nicholas dropped the gold down the chimney, where it fell into stockings hung by the fire to dry, a detail that would echo through history. Nicholas's acts of generosity earned him the title of the Gift Bringer, and he was eventually canonized as Saint Nicholas, the patron saint of children, sailors, and the poor. His feast day, December 6th, became a time of celebration, a day when gifts were exchanged in his honor. For centuries, Saint Nicholas would remain a beloved figure, revered across Europe as the bringer of blessings and hope. But Saint Nicholas was only the beginning. Before the Christianization of Europe, the winter season was a time of profound spiritual significance for many ancient peoples. The cold, dark days of midwinter marked the death of the old year and the rebirth of the new. It was a liminal time, a season when the boundary between the mortal world and the supernatural realm was believed to thin. In the lands of the Germanic and Norse peoples, the midwinter festival of Yule was celebrated with feasting, fire, and ritual. Central to Yule was the figure of Odin, the All-Father of Norse mythology. Odin was a complex and enigmatic god, a wanderer, a warrior, a seeker of wisdom. During the Yule season, Odin was said to ride across the skies on his eight-legged horse, Sleipnir, leading the wild hunt, a ghostly procession of spirits and other worldly beings. To the ancient Norse, Odin was not simply a distant deity. He was a presence that could be felt in the howling winds and the icy darkness. Children would leave offerings of food for Odin and his steed, hoping to receive blessings in return. Sound familiar? This early tradition bears a striking resemblance to the modern custom of leaving cookies and milk for Santa Claus. In other parts of Europe, similar winter figures emerged. The Celts believed in supernatural beings who visited households during the dark nights, while the Slavic peoples told stories of Father Frost and other winter spirits who controlled the snow and ice. These pagan traditions, with their blend of magic, fear, and awe, laid the foundation for what would eventually become the Santa Claus mythos. As Christianity spread across Europe, the Church often sought to incorporate pagan customs into its own traditions, creating a hybrid tapestry of belief. This blending of worlds is nowhere more evident than in the figure of Saint Nicholas. In the Netherlands, Saint Nicholas became Sinterklaas, a beloved figure who arrived on December 5th, the eve of his feast day, to deliver gifts to children. Dressed in bishop's robes, Sinterklaas rode a white horse and carried a staff. He was accompanied by his mischievous helper, Zwarte Piet, Black Pete, who punished naughty children while Sinterklaas rewarded the good. The imagery of Sinterklaas, a kind yet authoritative gift-bringer, would eventually cross the Atlantic and take root in the New World. When Dutch settlers arrived in America in the 17th century, they brought their traditions with them. Over time, Sinterklaas was anglicized into Santa Claus, and his legend began to evolve. The figure of Santa Claus, however, was still far from the plump, cheerful man in red we know today. The transformation of Santa Claus into his modern form began in the 19th century, a period of rapid cultural change and industrialization. In 1823, a poem titled A Visit from Saint Nicholas, now better known as The Night Before Christmas, was published anonymously. This poem, which described Santa Claus as a jolly, plump man who traveled in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, captured the imagination of the public and cemented many of the details we associate with Santa today. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. The image of Santa Claus as a magical, gift-giving figure resonated deeply with American families, offering comfort and joy during a time of societal upheaval. Soon, artists like Thomas Nast began to illustrate Santa Claus as a rotund, bearded man in a red suit, solidifying his appearance in popular culture. By the early 20th century, Santa Claus had become a global icon. He was no longer just a saint or a myth. He was a symbol of hope, generosity, and childhood wonder. Yet, as we look back on his origins, we see a figure far more complex than the commercialized Santa of today. Beneath the red suit and the merry laughter lies a tapestry of ancient beliefs, pagan rituals, and whispered stories of winter magic. Santa Claus is not the product of any single culture or religion. He is a convergence of ideas, a figure born from humanity's collective imagination. From the generosity of St. Nicholas to the wild hunts of Odin, from the Yule festivals of the Norse to the legends of Father Frost, Santa Claus carries with him echoes of our past. But why does his story persist? Perhaps it is because, at his core, Santa Claus represents something universal. He is a reminder that even in the darkest days of winter, there is light. Even when the world feels cold and unforgiving, there is kindness. And even when we are surrounded by uncertainty, there is magic to be found, if only we believe. As we move forward in this exploration, we will uncover how Santa Claus evolved across cultures, how ancient traditions shaped his story, and how whispers of darker myths linger beneath his cheerful exterior. Because every legend has its shadow, and Santa Claus' journey is far from ordinary. So, dear listener, are you ready to follow the trail of Santa Claus through history, myth, and mystery? For this is just the beginning. The tale of Santa Claus, that jovial figure of winter, dressed in red and bearing gifts, is not confined to any single corner of the world. Like the snow that falls silently across borders, his legend transcends cultures and languages, morphing into forms that reflect the unique customs, beliefs, and folklore of the people who celebrate him. From the chimney-scaling St. Nicholas of the Netherlands to the mischievous Krampus of German-speaking regions, the winter gift-bringer has taken on many guises. Some are kind and benevolent, others carry with them shadows of fear and darkness. But despite their differences, these figures share a common thread: the power to enchant, to inspire wonder, and to remind us of the mysteries that still linger in the heart of winter. In this chapter, we will travel across continents and centuries, exploring how Santa Claus manifests in different cultures, tracing both the light and dark sides of his legend. So, let us set forth on this journey, from the frosted canals of the Netherlands to the icy forests of Russia, from the snow-covered rooftops of Germany to the timeless myths of Scandinavia. In the small towns and cities of the Netherlands, the arrival of December brings more than just cold winds and early nights. It heralds the coming of Sinterklaas, the beloved Dutch precursor to Santa Claus. Sinterklaas is no modern invention. His roots stretch back to the 4th century figure of St. Nicholas of Myra, whose story we explored in the first chapter. Yet here, in the Low Countries, the saint has been woven into a tradition both festive and mysterious. On the evening of December 5th, known as Sinterklaasavond or St. Nicholas Eve, Dutch families gather to exchange gifts, sing songs, and share special treats like speculoos cookies and chocolate letters. But the true magic begins earlier, in mid-November, when Sinterklaas is said to arrive by boat from Spain, accompanied by his helpers, known as Zwarte Piet, Black Pete. Dressed in a bishop's red robes and carrying a golden staff, Sinterklaas cuts a striking figure as he rides his white horse through towns and cities, greeted by cheering children. He carries a large book that lists the names of those who have been good and those who have been naughty, a detail that harks back to darker legends of winter figures who punished misbehavior. The tradition of Zwarte Piet is controversial in modern times, as the character's portrayal has raised issues of racial sensitivity. Yet historically, Piet was seen as a mischievous companion who punished naughty children by placing them in sacks, a theme that echoes through many European legends. While Sinterklaas rewards good behavior with gifts and treats, the shadow of consequences still lingers, a reminder that winter is not only a season of joy, but also one of reckoning. Over time, Dutch settlers carried the figure of Sinterklaas to the New World, where his name and image would evolve into the Santa Claus we know today. But in the Netherlands, Sinterklaas remains a figure of tradition, a blend of Christian saint and folk legend who brings both joy and a touch of winter magic. And Germany. The Christmas season is a time of contrasts, of light and dark, of warmth and cold. Here, two powerful figures dominate the winter landscape: Christkind and Krampus. The Christkind, or Christ Child, is a serene, angelic figure who brings gifts to children on Christmas Eve. Often depicted as a radiant being with flowing robes and golden curls, the Christkind is a symbol of purity and peace. The figure emerged during the Protestant Reformation, championed by Martin Luther as a replacement for the Catholic veneration of Saint Nicholas. The Christ kind carries with it the warmth of divine love, embodying the light that shines in the darkness of winter. But where there is light, there must also be shadow. Enter Krampus, the terrifying counterpart to Saint Nicholas. While Nicholas rewards the good, Krampus, a horned, demonic figure with chains, bells, and a sack, punishes the wicked. He is said to snatch misbehaving children, carrying them off to a fate unknown. The tradition of Krampus is rooted in pre-Christian Alpine folklore, where he was believed to be a companion of pagan winter gods. With his fearsome appearance, cloven hooves, a lolling tongue, and a body covered in fur, Krampus serves as a reminder of the primal, untamed forces of winter. To this day, Krampus Night is celebrated on December 5th in parts of Germany, Austria, and other Alpine regions. Men dress as Krampus, parading through the streets with torches and bells, a chilling spectacle that merges fear with festivity. The coexistence of Christkind and Krampus in German tradition highlights an important theme in winter mythology: the balance between reward and punishment, between light and darkness. It is a duality that gives the Christmas season its depth and its power. In the vast snow-covered landscapes of Russia, the figure of Ded Moroz, Grandfather Frost, reigns as the bringer of winter gifts. Unlike Santa Claus, Ded Moroz does not travel alone. He is often accompanied by his granddaughter, Snegorochka, the Snow Maiden, a figure of beauty and innocence. Ded Moroz is an ancient figure whose origins can be traced to Slavic mythology. In pre-Christian times, he was a winter spirit who wielded control over the frost, the snow, and the bitter cold. Unlike the jolly Santa Claus, Ded Moroz was once feared rather than loved. He was a stern and imposing figure who could freeze crops, destroy homes, and punish those who displeased him. Families would make offerings to appease him, hoping to secure his favor during the harsh winter months. Over time, Ded Moroz was transformed into a more benevolent character, particularly during the Soviet era, when he became a secular figure associated with New Year celebrations. Today, Ded Moroz wears a long, fur-lined coat, often in blue or red, and carries a staff imbued with magical powers. He travels in a troika, a traditional Russian sleigh pulled by 3 horses, delivering gifts to children who have behaved well throughout the year. Snegorochka, his granddaughter, adds a unique element to the Russian winter legend. Her story is one of beauty and tragedy. In some versions of the tale, she is made of snow and melts when she experiences human love. Together, Ded Moroz and Snegorochka embody the magic and melancholy of the Russian winter, a season both beautiful and unforgiving. In the Nordic countries of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, the Christmas season is watched over by the julenis, or tomt. These small, gnome-like creatures are the keepers of homes, farms, and families, protecting them from misfortune and ensuring a prosperous year ahead. The julenis have their origins in ancient Scandinavian folklore, where they were believed to be spirits of the land, the protectors of hearth and home. Though they are generally benevolent, they can be mischievous or even vengeful if offended. Tradition holds that families must leave a bowl of porridge with butter for the julenis on Christmas Eve to ensure their goodwill. The connection between the julenis and older Norse beliefs is evident. In ancient times, the Yule season was associated with the wild hunt, led by Odin, the god who rode through the skies on his 8-legged horse. The julenis, with their association to the land and home, are perhaps echoes of these older spirits, guardians who bridge the world of mortals and the supernatural. In modern Scandinavian traditions, the julenis has been merged with the figure of Santa Claus, becoming a beloved character who delivers gifts to children. Yet beneath his cheerful exterior lies a trace of the old folklore, a reminder of the spirits who once roamed the winter nights. What unites these diverse figures, Sinterklaas, Christkind, Krampus, Ded Moroz, and the Woelenisse, is their connection to the winter season and their role as arbiters of reward and punishment. Whether kind or fearsome, each reflects humanity's attempt to bring meaning to the dark days of winter, to balance joy with caution, and to celebrate life even in the face of the cold. As we look across cultures, we see that the legend of Santa Claus is not confined to any single story. It is a patchwork of traditions, myths, and beliefs that have grown and evolved over centuries. These winter figures remind us of our shared history, of the ways we have sought warmth and wonder in the midst of winter's chill. But there is more to this story. In the next chapter, we will step beyond history and tradition to explore the darker, more mysterious tales of Santa Claus. Tales of shadows that lurk beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. For every light, there is a shadow, and every legend carries with it whispers of something deeper, something forgotten. Beneath the twinkling lights and cheerful carols of the Christmas season lies something older, a shadowy world where winter legends are not always kind, and the figure of Santa Claus is not always jolly. Before he became the benevolent gift-giver we know today, the myths surrounding Santa were laced with dread, caution, and mystery. These were stories designed not to comfort but to discipline, tales meant to keep children in line and adults wary of the dark. In villages where the nights stretched long and the cold seemed endless, people spoke of figures who roamed the snow-covered earth, watching, judging, and sometimes punishing those who stepped out of line. Some whispered of monstrous creatures lurking in the shadows of St. Nicholas, while others told of unsettling apparitions and vengeful spirits who visited homes at Christmas time. These stories were not mere entertainment. They were survival tools, warning against disobedience and recklessness during the harshest time of the year. In this chapter, we descend into those darker legends, where the winter gift-bringer is not a source of joy, but a harbinger of something far more sinister. Be warned, once you enter the shadows, it may be difficult to look at Santa Claus the same way again. In the Alpine regions of Europe, the crackle of chains and the distant clanging of bells once sent shivers down the spines of villagers. It was said that on the night of December 5th, Krampus would descend from the mountains, his twisted horns silhouetted against the moonlight, his hooves leaving tracks in the fresh snow. Unlike St. Nicholas, who rewarded the good, Krampus came for the wicked, and his punishments were not gentle. Parents warned their children to behave, lest Krampus find them. He carried a bundle of birch sticks, said to be used for beating naughty children. But for those who had truly misbehaved, his punishments were far worse. Legends claimed he carried a sack or basket on his back, large enough to stuff a child inside. Those taken by Krampus were never seen again, whisked away to his lair deep in the mountains. Some said he ate the children. Others believed he dragged them to the underworld to face eternal torment. In some towns, stories described Krampus as a shadow cast by St. Nicholas himself, the embodiment of what happens when mercy is replaced by wrath. He was not a separate creature, but the dark counterpart to the saint's kindness. Together, they were a dual force, one to reward and one to punish, two sides of the same coin. To this day, the legend lives on. In Austria and Bavaria, the Krampuslauf, or Krampus Run, is celebrated annually. Men don grotesque costumes, their fur-covered bodies and horned masks resembling demons from another world. They prowl the streets with torches, their bells echoing through the cold night. Though the event is festive, there is an undeniable unease in the air. Perhaps it is the fear that Krampus still watches from the shadows, waiting for those who stray too far. Far to the north, where winter stretches endlessly and the sun barely rises, Icelandic children grew up fearing the arrival of the Yule lads. These 13 mischievous creatures, known as Jólasveinar, are said to descend from the mountains in the days leading up to Christmas. But unlike the merry elves of modern Santa Claus tales, the Yule lads were far from friendly. Each lad had a name, a purpose, and a peculiar habit. Stekjarstaur, the sheepcoat clod, harassed sheep in the night. Giljagor, the gully gawk, stole milk from cows. Stufur, the stubby, pilfered food from frying pans. The tales grew darker as the days passed. Some lads were known to slam doors at night, startling sleeping families. Others snuck into homes to steal candles, meat, or bread. For Icelanders struggling through harsh winters, such theft was no laughing matter. But the Yule lads were not the worst part of the tale. Looming over them was their mother, the terrifying Grýla. She was an ancient ogress who hunted children during Yule, snatching up the disobedient and boiling them alive in her cauldron. Some versions of the story claim that Grýla could hear the misdeeds of children from miles away, her sharp ears attuned to every lie told or chore left undone. Children were warned to behave not out of kindness, but out of fear that Grýla would come for them. And then there was Jólakötturinn, the Yule cat. Unlike most festive felines, this massive creature was said to stalk the countryside, hunting those who failed to receive new clothes for Christmas. It was a lesson cloaked in terror: work hard, earn your rewards, or face the consequences. The Yule legends of Iceland were cautionary tales, blending mischief with menace. They spoke to the realities of survival in a land of cold and darkness, where food was scarce and discipline was a matter of life and death. In the Pennsylvania Dutch communities of North America, children once feared a figure named Belsnickel. Unlike the cheerful Santa Claus, Belsnickel was a solitary, ragged man who appeared without warning, his clothes torn and his face smeared with soot. He carried a bundle of switches in one hand and a sack of treats in the other, a combination of kindness and cruelty that left children both eager and terrified to see him. Belsnickel would knock on doors in the days leading up to Christmas, demanding to know if the children of the house had been good. If they answered truthfully and passed his tests, often reciting prayers or singing a song, they would receive treats like nuts or candies. But those who lied or misbehaved would feel the sting of his switches, a punishment both physical and symbolic. The Belsnickel tradition carried with it echoes of old European legends, blending elements of St. Nicholas and darker winter spirits. In his ragged appearance and stern demeanor, Belsnickel embodied the unpredictability of winter itself. One never knew if his visit would bring rewards or reprimands. Though the figure has largely faded into history, stories of Belsnickel still linger in small communities, whispered among those who remember a time when Christmas was not only a season of joy, but also a season of judgment. What is it about winter that lends itself so easily to these dark and frightening tales? Perhaps it is the long nights, when shadows stretch further than they should. Or perhaps it is the silence, the kind of stillness that allows whispers to travel across snow-covered fields. The dark tales of Santa and his counterparts, Krampus, the Yule lads, Belsnickel, and others, serve as reminders of an older time, when survival was uncertain and the line between myth and reality was thin. These stories were not merely meant to entertain, but to teach. They instilled obedience, caution, and respect for the unseen forces of the world. Yet even today, as we sit in the glow of Christmas lights, the shadows remain. The whispers of those old legends still echo, reminding us that the magic of winter is not always benevolent. Sometimes it comes with a price. In the next chapter, we will explore how these dark tales connect to ancient myths and beliefs, revealing the roots of the winter legends we celebrate today. For every story has its origins, and sometimes the oldest tales are the most haunting of all. Beneath the cheerful facade of Santa Claus and the festive warmth of Christmas lies a network of ancient myths and beliefs that stretch back thousands of years. Long before stockings were hung by chimneys and reindeer dashed across the sky, humanity told stories of winter spirits, gift-bringers, and divine figures who watched over the season's rituals. These early legends, scattered across cultures and continents, share haunting similarities, weaving a tapestry of mystery, power, and awe. In this chapter, we will unearth the roots of the Santa figure and his shadowy counterparts. By tracing these myths to their origins, we will discover how they mirror humanity's deepest fears and hopes during the dark days of winter. From pagan gods and sacrificial rites to celestial journeys and symbolic rebirth, the figure of Santa Claus and his darker companions stands on the shoulders of ancient deities and traditions that shaped entire civilizations. In Norse mythology, winter brought with it the ominous Wild Hunt, a ghostly procession led by none other than Odin, the All-Father. Descriptions of the hunt varied, but its arrival was always heralded by stormy skies and howling winds. Odin, mounted on his eight-legged steed Sleipnir, rode across the heavens with his army of spectral hunters, collecting souls and watching over humanity from above. To the ancient Norse, winter was a time when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead grew thin. The Wild Hunt was seen as both a blessing and a curse. Those who witnessed it might receive good fortune, but they could also be swept away, their spirits joining the spectral horde. Interestingly, elements of Odin's legend find echoes in modern depictions of Santa Claus. Odin's long white beard, his celestial travels, and his all-seeing nature resemble the jolly gift-bringer we know today. Sleipnir, his supernatural steed, may have inspired Santa's flying reindeer, while the offerings left for Odin's horse, often food or hay placed in boots, bear a striking resemblance to the modern tradition of leaving cookies for Santa. In this connection, the benevolent Santa Claus begins to look less like a modern creation and more like a softened version of an ancient god whose power commanded reverence and fear alike. Long before Christmas, the Romans celebrated Saturnalia, a midwinter festival honoring Saturn, the god of time, harvest, and renewal. Beginning on December 17th and lasting for days, Saturnalia was a time of feasting, merriment, and role reversals. Slaves were treated as equals, masters served their servants, and gifts were exchanged in a display of generosity and goodwill. The festival's association with chaos and inversion speaks to its deeper meaning. It was a symbolic escape from the darkness of winter, a temporary reprieve from life's harsh realities. Saturnalia's traditions influenced the modern Christmas season, particularly in the customs of feasting, decorating homes, and giving gifts. However, Saturnalia also had darker elements. Roman writers spoke of sacrifices made to ensure the return of light, with Saturn's role as both a giver of bounty and a harbinger of doom embodying the dual nature of winter, a season of renewal but also death. In Slavic folklore, winter was personified by Morozko, also known as Ded Moroz, the Frost King. Unlike the benevolent Santa Claus, Morozko was a stern and unforgiving figure, capable of bringing both gifts and death. Legends tell of his icy touch freezing crops, rivers, and even humans who displeased him. One of the most famous tales of Morozko speaks of a cruel stepmother who sends her stepdaughter into the forest during a harsh winter, hoping she will freeze to death. Instead, the girl's kindness and humility impress Morozko, who rewards her with jewels and riches. When the stepmother sends her own spoiled daughter to claim the same fortune, Morozko punishes her arrogance with a frozen demise. The story reflects a familiar theme found in many winter legends: reward for virtue and punishment for wickedness. Morozko is not unlike the Santa Claus of today, who keeps lists of those who are naughty and nice. Yet his presence is far grimmer, a reflection of the unforgiving power of nature in the dead of winter. In the Alpine regions, the figure of Perchta haunted winter nights with a chilling reputation. Sometimes depicted as a beautiful woman, other times as a hag with a hooked nose and tattered clothes, Perchta was said to visit homes during the 12 days of Christmas. Much like Santa Claus, Perchta judged the behavior of children and adults alike. Those who had been good were rewarded with small coins or gifts, but those who had been lazy or dishonest faced a far darker fate. According to legend, Perchta would slit open the bellies of her victims, removing their innards and stuffing the empty cavity with straw. Though terrifying, Perchta's legend carried important cultural symbolism. Her punishment was often directed at those who neglected their work, particularly the spinning of wool. The story served as a grim reminder of the importance of diligence and hard work during the harsh winter months. In many ways, Perchta's tale mirrors the dual nature of winter legends, the promise of reward tempered by the threat of punishment. It is a theme that recurs across cultures, reinforcing the idea that survival in winter depends on both discipline and reverence for the forces of nature. As we explore these ancient myths and legends, Odin and the Wild Hunt, Saturnalia's chaotic celebrations, Morozko's frosty judgment, and Perchta's terrifying justice, a common archetype begins to emerge. Across cultures, the figure of the Winter Watcher appears as a being of duality, generous yet fearsome, kind yet severe. The Winter Watcher is a reflection of humanity's relationship with winter itself. For ancient peoples, the season brought both hardship and hope. The cold, the darkness, and the scarcity of food were forces to be respected and, in many cases, appeased. Figures like Odin, Saturn, Morozko, and Perchta embodied these forces, serving as both guardians and punishers. It is no coincidence that these myths share so many similarities. They speak to universal truths about the human experience: the need for discipline, the hope for renewal, and the desire to believe in something greater than ourselves during the darkest time of the year. The figure of Santa Claus did not emerge from nowhere. He is the product of centuries of myth, legend, and cultural adaptation, a synthesis of gods, spirits, and folkloric beings who watched over winter and demanded respect. Yet as these ancient figures evolved, their darker aspects were softened, their harsher lessons replaced with kindness and generosity. Odin became Saint Nicholas. Morozko became Ded Moroz. The terrifying Perchta faded into obscurity. The shadow gave way to the light. But the shadows are not gone. They linger in the stories, in the whispers of legends passed down through generations. And for those who look closely, the roots of Santa Claus still bear traces of the ancient myths that inspired him. In the next chapter, we will delve into the fictional dark tales inspired by these ancient legends, stories that blend history and imagination to create a chilling glimpse of what Santa Claus might have been in a world where the shadows still reign. From his shadowy origins in ancient myths and legends to his evolution through centuries of folklore, Santa Claus has emerged as a symbol of joy, generosity, and holiday magic in the modern world. Yet beneath the red suit, the jingle of sleigh bells, and the twinkle of his merry eyes, traces of his mysterious past remain, a subtle echo of the gods, spirits, and winter watchers who came before him. In this chapter, we will explore how the ancient legends and cultural interpretations of Santa Claus converge to create the beloved figure we know today. We will examine the role of Saint Nicholas, the Victorian reinvention of Santa, and the influence of commercialization that turned him into a global icon. Finally, we will uncover the deeper meanings that Santa Claus still holds. As a guardian of tradition, a figure of wonder, and a bridge between the past and the present. The modern Santa Claus owes much of his identity to Saint Nicholas, a 4th century Greek bishop from the town of Myra in modern-day Turkey. Known for his deep compassion and generosity, Nicholas devoted his life to helping the poor, the sick, and especially children. His most famous act of kindness is said to have been saving 3 impoverished sisters from slavery by secretly leaving bags of gold for their dowry. The legend of Saint Nicholas spread throughout Europe, where he became the patron saint of children, sailors, and travelers. In the Netherlands, he was celebrated as Sinterklaas, a gift-giving figure who visited homes on December 5th, leaving presents for well-behaved children. Sinterklaas's distinctive features, a long white beard, a red bishop's robe, and his habit of rewarding the virtuous, formed the foundation for the modern Santa Claus. Yet even here, remnants of the older myths lingered. Sinterklaas, much like Odin, was depicted as a winter traveler, watching over humanity and rewarding those who pleased him. The line between the saint and the ancient gods was already blurring, a sign of the transformation yet to come. By the 19th century, Santa Claus began to take on a more recognizable form, thanks largely to the efforts of writers, artists, and cultural shifts in Victorian England and America. Before this period, Christmas was often associated with ghost stories, superstitions, and darker folklore. But the Victorians sought to reinvent Christmas as a time of warmth, family, and celebration. In 1823, Clement Clarke Moore published the now famous poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, better known today as The Night Before Christmas. Moore's depiction of Santa Claus as a jolly old elf with a plump belly, twinkling eyes, and a sleigh pulled by flying reindeer redefined the image of the gift-bringer. This cheerful, benevolent Santa was far removed from his ancient, fearsome counterparts, yet he retained echoes of their roles as winter travelers and watchers. The artist Thomas Nast further solidified Santa's image in the 1860s with illustrations for Harper's Weekly. Nast's Santa was a rotund, joyful figure dressed in red and white, a look that would soon become iconic. Through literature and art, the dark myths of winter watchers were replaced with the comforting image of a kindly old man who brought happiness to children worldwide. Yet even in this cheerful reinvention, hints of the past remain. Santa's list of who is naughty or nice echoes the judgment of ancient figures like Morosco and Perchta. His magical journey across the sky is reminiscent of Odin's celestial ride during the Wild Hunt, and his role as a giver of gifts continues the traditions of Saturnalia and Sinterklaas. The 20th century saw Santa Claus become a truly global icon, thanks in no small part to the power of commercialization. The most enduring image of modern Santa was popularized in the 1930s through Coca-Cola's holiday advertisements. Artist Haddon Sundblom created a series of illustrations featuring a plump, rosy-cheeked Santa, dressed in his now famous red suit with white fur trim. While Coca-Cola did not invent Santa's red and white attire, these colors were already associated with the bishop's robes of St. Nicholas. Sundblom's warm and cheerful depiction of Santa Claus became deeply ingrained in popular culture. This version of Santa was approachable, magical, and above all, commercial, a symbol of holiday cheer that transcended cultures and borders. The commercialization of Santa Claus has been met with both celebration and criticism. On one hand, he has become a universal figure of joy, uniting people of all backgrounds during the holiday season. On the other hand, his deeper meanings, as a figure of kindness, justice, and mystery, have often been overshadowed by materialism and consumerism. Despite his modern reinvention, Santa Claus remains a figure of profound significance. For children, he is the embodiment of magic and wonder, proof that the extraordinary can exist in an ordinary world. For adults, he is a reminder of the joy, generosity, and innocence of childhood. But Santa Claus also serves as a bridge between the past and the present. His roots in ancient myths and legends remind us of humanity's timeless need for stories that explain the world, inspire hope, and enforce moral values. Whether as Odin leading the wild hunt, Saint Nicholas secretly leaving gifts, or a cheerful elf flying through the night sky, Santa Claus has always been a reflection of our collective desires and beliefs. At his core, Santa is not just a man in a red suit. He is a symbol of light in the darkness, generosity in times of scarcity, and hope in the face of uncertainty. He represents the best of humanity, a reminder that even in the coldest, darkest days, kindness and magic can still be found. From the ancient gods who ruled the skies to the modern-day Santa Claus who slides down chimneys, the evolution of this figure has been shaped by cultures, traditions, and stories spanning millennia. His journey has taken him from the fearsome Odin of the Norse wild hunt to the saintly kindness of Nicholas of Myra, and finally to the global icon of festive cheer we know today. Yet the shadows of his past still linger. The legends of Krampus, Perchta, and the Wild Hunt remind us that Santa Claus is more than just a cheerful giver of gifts. He is a reflection of winter's dual nature, a season of darkness and light, fear and hope, punishment and reward. As we celebrate the holidays, we carry forward this ancient legacy. We tell our children stories of Santa Claus, we leave cookies and milk by the fireplace, and we hang stockings in anticipation of his visit. In doing so, we participate in a tradition that stretches back to the dawn of civilization. A tradition that reminds us of the power of belief, the magic of storytelling, and the enduring light that shines even in the darkest of winters. And so, Santa Claus lives on, not just as a man in a red suit, but as a symbol of the myths, mysteries, and magic that connect us all, across cultures, across generations, and across time.